Hey everybody, this is Mitchell. I am the Dabbler, and welcome to the channel. I hope you are having a great 2025 so far. One of my resolutions for the year was to start a new YouTube channel, and so here we are. Ignore the mess behind me. I know this is not exactly the best backdrop, but we're just going to get started because I just don't want excuses anymore. But today we are going to start with my favorite movie and TV show experiences in 2024. I made a conscious decision to put movies and TV together for this video. I have some plans for other videos, but I did not, at least in 2024, watch enough movies and or TV to do separate lists. I just feel like it wouldn't be a good list. I just didn't have enough to pull from, so I'm going to combine it together. But I am going to rank my top five, and I am going to mix the movies and TV together. And so that was a little bit of an interesting thought exercise. I do have some honorable mentions. I got about five honorable mentions, so we'll go ahead and get started. I am really interested in y'all's thoughts. What were your favorite movies of 2024? Your favorite TV shows? Do you disagree with me? What do you think? Put it in the comments. And if you really dig what we're doing here, or what I'm doing here, go ahead and give a subscribe or a like. I do appreciate it. Like I said, getting started, just trying to get going. So let's get started with the first honorable mention, and that is Shogun. And the reason it's an honorable mention, because you're like, how is it not in your top five? I have not seen it. I started like the first episode, the pilot. I was really intrigued by it, but I just, with everything going on in my own life and just other things we had going on, I did not watch it. I have no doubt, based on what I've heard and what I did watch, that this probably would have made it into my top five. I'm very excited to see it. I'm pumped to see it, but didn't get to. So that's why it's an honorable mention. I'm just putting it out there so that um, I don't get a bunch of comments about how could you not put Shogun on here. It's just, frankly, I did not get it. I did not watch it yet. I will, though. I'm excited. Same goes for my second honorable mention, which is The Wild Robot. This movie looks right up my alley. Very emotional, animation, beautiful. I'm very excited about it, but I have not watched it yet. That will be remedied soon, but that's why it's an honorable mention. I do think it would probably be somewhere on this list. Um, Same thing goes for the next one. This is the last one that I haven't watched, I promise. And that's Shrinking. I loved the first season of Shrinking, and season two came out at the end of 2024. I didn't have an Apple TV subscription anymore. I've been waiting for Severance season two to come out, and that got delayed a little bit. So, yeah, I'm excited to go back into it, though. I am excited when Severance season two comes back on, which is very soon, maybe even already happened by the time you see this video. I will be back into the Apple TV account world, and so I will be watching Shrinking for sure. Um, Love the first season. I'm sure from everything I've seen, it looks like the second season is maybe even better than the first one, which I really enjoyed. So that's an honorable mention because I just know that I'm probably going to really enjoy it. So last two honorable mentions. Twisters. This was tough. I did enjoy the movie a lot, but I'm putting it as an honorable mention here because of the 4DX experience, which I was not able to do, unfortunately. They actually re-released it in 4DX, and if you don't know what 4DX is, it's like a technology that like moves the chair, there's wind, water, things like that. And everything I saw about the reviews of it made that so intriguing. So I'm going to put an honorable mention here because if I could have seen that in 4DX, I bet it would have put it on my top five. As it was, pretty good movie. This was obviously a large vehicle for Glenn Powell, and he drove a very large vehicle in this movie. But I was actually surprised that it wasn't just him being the star of it. I know he was like the star for a lot of people, but I thought overall the movie was pretty good. The effects were great. Just the story, it felt like it dragged a little bit. Just not as good as what I was hoping for. I didn't think it had the emotional impact the way Twister did. It really starts on a strong emotional level, and that pretty much is the peak of the emotion in the whole movie. That pacing's just a little weird. I thought it was such a good start, but then it never could pay off to the level that we got, the potential that we had at the start. So that's why it's an honorable mention. And then my last honorable mention is Agatha All Along. I was surprised by this. I was interested in it. I didn't love the finale of WandaVision. I, like many others, felt that Agatha was one of the best characters on that series or that mini series. Um, but I didn't know how I felt about doing a whole show spinoff. And originally, this was my honorable mention because I wasn't finished with it. But like right before recording this, I was like, you know what? Let's finish this. We had a couple episodes left, my wife and I, and we did finish it. And I gotta say, episode 7, again, I'm not gonna spoil anything. I think it was episode 7, was to me the highlight of the entire series, and it paid off in such a cool way. Things that were happening throughout the show that were weird or interesting, and like I was theorizing on, and so there was a really big payoff. And I honestly think it was one of the best payoffs and executions of a payoff in any of the Marvel shows. The problem comes the next 2 episodes. I just didn't think the ending felt rushed. It didn't land in a cohesive way that I was hoping for. It didn't have the emotional hit that I was hoping for. It did answer a lot of questions, although it didn't answer some of my biggest ones. Again, I'm not spoiling in this, hopefully. I just felt like the finale just wasn't strong. It was stronger than the WandaVision finale for sure, but I don't know. It almost hurt it that I loved episode 7 so much that the last 2 episodes just didn't have the same. And I watched them all in the same thing, so maybe that's part of it too. Like I binged those last 3 episodes, but definitely a good show, worth checking out. Just not in my top 5. All right, let's hit the top 5. And in my number 5 spot for best movies or TV in 2025 for me, are my favorite, not necessarily best, just my favorite. Number 5 is Deadpool and Wolverine. My hype for this was pretty high. Obviously, the MCU has not been in the best spot. I am sick of this multiverse thing, and I was super excited about it. The whole Kang thing. I really loved the Loki shows, the 2 seasons of Loki, but I was not a fan of Doctor Strange 2. I get what they were trying to do. I'm not hating it if you loved it. I just didn't think it paid off. And I felt like it was kind of like a episode of Black Mirror or something in the MCU. It didn't feel like it really was doing the multiverse thing in a fun, exciting way. It was just kind of like snippets of things here and there. So I was skeptical, but Deadpool and Wolverine was excellent, and it's obvious that they put a ton of work into actually maximizing the use of like the multiverse. Um, the actual story of the movie is not that great. I would say it's the weakest of all of the Deadpool movies. I connected with the Deadpool specific universe much more strongly in Deadpool 1 and 2, which is very ironic because the entire motivation for Deadpool in this film is to save that universe, and yet in this movie I feel the least connected to that universe. Like I don't even know if I care about it that much, which is weird. But the actual stuff they do with Wolverine, Deadpool, the chemistry between Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds is incredible, and you could tell they're just loving it. And honestly, the cameos are so much better than what we got in like Doctor Strange because they just make so much sense to the characters. The cameos in Doctor Strange 2 felt like it honestly kind of felt like What If in a way. It was almost like a one off where like they immediately get on screen and it's like this is an alternate version of this character, whatever. In this one, it feels like those characters got pulled into this universe and they like well, I'm gonna be again spoiler. I'm trying to not do spoilers, but some of the um I know it's been so long. It's like, what are you going to do? It's on Disney Plus now, but I'm still trying to avoid it. But they were so much better in this. So overall, really liked the movie. The effects were pretty good. Probably the biggest downer for me is the Void in the movie. Doesn't look like Loki Void a lot. And I just don't understand why, because I actually love the look and feel of the Loki Void. It had this eeriness to it that was really cool. And they went like the whole Mad Max vibe. And I don't know. I'm just kind of sick of like the bland looking stuff. It made for some good jokes, but I don't know. That was probably my biggest downside. But for what they had to do to like bring this character back and put him together and make it make sense, it was very cool. I don't know if I care about the story in the MCU because I'm just so sick of like the multiverse stuff in the MCU that I just have no confidence any of this is going to pay off in any way. Like there is a scene in this film where you see something in the future, allegedly, and it's like played off as a joke kind of thing, but it could be really cool if we see that play out. I have zero confidence it'll actually happen. It could happen, and that's fine, but like I just think things are in so much disarray, especially with like Doomsday and bringing Robert Downey Jr. back and all this kind of stuff that like I just don't trust any of this stuff to like tie through. So for that, it is great, but it's only my number 5, and I really enjoyed the movie though. All right, number 4, kind of related, surprisingly. Um, didn't expect to see this on my list, but it's so good. And that's X-Men 97. I won't get into the spoilers on it. I love the original X-Men show. So to get a sequel show that takes place like after it, like right after it, I was so excited. And the way they did the characters and the writing, the music, so good, so good. I'm very excited for a season 2 of this. I probably won't be as pumped about the season 2 as this one because it's just like bringing back something, right? One of the things that is kind of a theme for this year in 2024 is just how many properties that came out were based on existing franchises or were sequels, and this is one of those that was a sequel, and I still loved it. It felt so new yet so old at the same time. And so X-Men 97, I really recommend it. The characters are well thought out. The writing's really good. Um, Definitely one of the better Disney Plus shows. And I'm really glad they like gave it a chance. So I know there's a lot of drama around the creator of the show, or like the showrunner in the show, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not really going to get into all that, and I don't know where that puts the second season as far as like creatively, but the X-Men show that this is a sequel to was such a good foundation. It defined Marvel for almost an entire generation because we didn't have any of the movies. Until then, it was like the animated shows that had the connected universes and all that kind of stuff. And it's really awesome that they used that as their foundation. They didn't try and make like a whole new style thing like the new Spider-Man show that's coming out. They just were like, no, we're gonna do it as a direct sequel, and I love that. So that was my number 4, X-Men 97. Number 3, which was my most anticipated film of the year, so I'm really surprised. And I would say film or TV, and that's Dune Part 2. I absolutely adore Dune Part 1. I was blown away by the sound design, the visuals, the way it doesn't hold your hand. It like puts you into this universe and you just have to live in it with the characters and try and figure stuff out. The source material, the books of Dune are very heavy and full of dialogue, or not necessarily dialogue, but full of exposition and a lot of like ideation on things. Like I've tried to read the books many times and I keep getting bogged down with it because it's just you have to keep reading things over and over again to understand it. And I know that that was a feeling that a lot of people got in the theater that didn't know the Dune universe or the storyline. And I think it's appropriate that they felt that way. I kind of felt that way in the movie too, but I think it was by design. I honestly think it was by design that the movie was confusing. Like it's like, yeah, you're not supposed to get it. And that's what the books feel like too. You're like uncovering it and then you get more familiar with it. So I was really excited for Dune Part 2. And I do think it was a great movie. The action scenes were incredible. Way more sandworms. And that's awesome, of course. But, you know, the biggest thing with this for me is I just felt like it was a little bit rushed as far as like the pacing of the film was a lot. I just loved Dune 1 as a complete experience, even though I know it like was always going to be a part 2. It literally starts right where Dune Part 2 or Dune Part 1 leaves off. And then the pacing just seems so much faster. And I get it, I understand it, but like from a movie perspective, it just was a totally different vibe. I loved it though. It's still on my number 3. You know, when I look at like ranking against the rest of my top 5, a telling thing to me is like when Dune Part 1 came out, I went and saw it multiple times in theaters. I got a subscription from Max to do it. So I watched that when it came out as well. So I was like going back and forth in theater and like watching it at home. And then when the Blu-ray came out, I bought that. I loved part one. I showed it to my in-laws. I was trying to get everybody to watch it because I loved it. I have not watched Dune Part 2 since it's been in theaters. So I think that's telling. I haven't had the reason to go back to it. I will go back to it. I will enjoy it probably even more another time. I think I've seen it twice in theaters. It just didn't have the same as the first Dune, but it would have been hard to do that anyway, right? It's a sequel. It doesn't like the world building in part one was so good. But I did really enjoy it. I loved it. I just started the Dune show on Max. Not feeling that as much, mainly because of how much exposition there is in the show. I feel like they're explaining so much, and that's not what I loved about the Dune movies. So I don't know if I'm going to stick with that or not, but I'm really excited for a part three. I know kind of where the story goes with that. I don't know how they're going to do that, but I'm interested to see them try. So Dune Part 2, my number 3. Now we get into number 2 and number 1. And this was so difficult because, like I mentioned at the start of this video, I haven't watched a ton of stuff last year as far as like TV and movies. So I hope to watch a lot more this year. I honestly expected like Dune Part 2 to be my number 1 movie of the year without a doubt. These top 2 properties or pieces of film and TV, they were not even on my radar really. This second one, number 2 slot, is Fallout. I played the Fallout games. I saw the Fallout trailer and it looked interesting, but I was kind of late to it. I didn't watch it when it first started. And then it got some buzz, which sometimes, I wouldn't say sometimes, I say a lot of times buzz can like really throw me off. And because I just feel like if something is so popular and it reaches the masses so much that I don't know if I would love it. And so the more and more Fallout got popular, I was like, oh, I don't know. And then we sat down and watched like the first episode, and I was blown away by that first episode. The way it was structured, the introduction to the characters, it like put me into this world, and it took me back to like the Fallout video game. I just wanted to be in that world. We binged the whole thing really fast. That was probably the fastest binge because I don't know if it came out. Maybe it came out like week by week when it first came out, but by the time we had watched it, it was all out and it was Fallout and it was great. Yeah, I loved it. I cannot wait for season 2. Not twist, but the tease at the end is getting me super excited, and it's gotten me back into like playing Fallout again. So maybe might do some of that on channel. I don't know. It just depends on how things go. But I've been re-exploring Fallout, and it's been really fun. Love the show. The cast is so good. The music is so good. The comedy in the show is hilarious. They still give you the drama and the twists and the turns, but it's so funny still. And that is Fallout. Like that's Fallout back to like Fallout 1 Fallout. Okay, if you never played the original like isometric 2D RPGs, like that's what made it so great is like the universe was serious. They took it seriously to like build this lore in and all these different objects and things. But it was like didn't take itself too seriously at the same time. And I just thought it was perfect. And I thought that the show was such a good adaptation of video games, of that universe anyway, that I'm like, man, Amazon nailed it. I do not watch Game of Thrones, so I know there's like a big spinoff on HBO for Game of Thrones that or on Max that's people are watching. I know Amazon has its Lord of the Rings, and that's a big franchise that's hitting. For me, Fallout is the biggest franchise right now. I cannot wait to see that universe grow. I mean, it kind of blew me away that they weren't prepped to like have more merch, more like crossovers with the video games. Like I don't know if they expected it to go this well, and it's incredible. Like I was in an airport with a Fallout shirt on, not the show, just like an old Fallout like design from Fallout. And like the TSA agent was like, I love that show. They didn't even know it was a video game. They thought my shirt was from the show. So it's done really well, and I cannot wait for season 2. I wonder what y'all thought about that. Like, am I crazy? Like, is it so good? I just love it. I just felt like every episode, the pacing was so good. The reveals through it. I'm almost worried for season 2 that it can't live up to season 1. But like, I just love that we're in that were in this universe on screen. It's so good. The performances were incredible across the board. And that leaves my number one favorite TV and movie in 2024. This movie has been in discussion for like 20 years. Okay? I'm not even exaggerating. Like 20 years ago, we were having conversations about this movie. And the trailer came out for it. And I did not like it. My reaction was very skeptical. Not even for the reasons a lot of people had, which is the cast, right? They had an idea who the cast should be, and that is Wicked. Wicked is my number one. I'm surprised to say this as well. Now, I loved the Wicked stage show. I've seen it twice. I listened to those original audio recordings. I get it. Kristen, Adina, they're the originals. That is not why my reaction was so strong when I saw the trailer. It was my concern about the musicality of it not feeling similar to the original musical, because I love the style of it. All the themes that they use throughout the musical that kind of call back to the original Wizard of Oz movie. And I was afraid that this was going to be like I don't want to say Disney-ified. I think that's overused. Although it certainly is the case that Disney's doing that, like their animated live action remakes. It just all sounds the same. Like it's all this produced stuff that's just going to stay in line. And I was afraid it wasn't going to be different enough as well. So I know it's like kind of contradicting, but I was like wanting the music to stay like tied to the original, but then show us like what's the point of even making it a movie, right? This film was going to be about 2 hours and 40 minutes or something, which was like 10 minutes longer than the original Broadway runtime, including the intermission, right? There's a 15 intermission between part one and part two, and they decided to make this a part one full movie, and I was skeptical of that too. And so that was the one thing from the trailer that did kind of speak to me. It was like, ooh, look at these sets. Like, okay, that's interesting. But I didn't feel like any of the trailers really were that good about selling me on the movie, except for the last one. The last trailer I think that came out, I was like, okay, maybe I will go. And then when I saw the movie and I saw what they put into it, where they let scenes play out longer and you get the emotionality of it. And there's a scene in the middle of the movie, which I'm sure some people reacted to more strongly than others. But there's a scene in the middle that like redefines the character of Elphaba for me. I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away with Cynthia. She is now my Elphaba after watching this, and the way she portrays it. And Ariana Grande, I think she did great as Glinda for what it is. I mean, clearly she respected it, and seeing a lot more of the like behind the scenes of the comments she made about, hey, we got to keep this in. Like, clearly she's a huge fan of the musical, but it did a little bit play off as karaoke-ish. I don't mean that as disrespectful, although I guess by saying that it's a little bit disrespectful. I love karaoke. I sing a lot of karaoke. It felt like she was playing her idol instead of playing the character. More I saw it, the more I kind of came around to it. But I did not have the guttural reaction to a new actress playing this role the way I did with Cynthia, because that moment in the middle was great and it built up to that. And you know if you saw the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It's the dance club scene is all I'll say. And they really sit on that scene for a long time, and it's really awkward, and it puts you in, and it's very uncomfortable. And I feel like they just nailed it. I mean, that's what it should feel like. And it was so brilliant. But even before that, the Wizard and I song, Wizard and I wouldn't even have been in like my top 10 Wicked songs, probably. Definitely not my top 5 in any of the original recordings or any other stuff I've seen. The Wizard and I from this movie is my favorite Wicked song, period, now across everything, including the original cast. I love what Cynthia did with this song and what they let her do and the musicality of it and the way it works in the movie. it sets her character up so strongly. I love it. And it blew me away. From then on, the rest of the movie, I was on a ride, and I have seen it 4 times now in theaters. It just released on digital at home, so I'll be rewatching that a bunch. I watched the deleted scenes. Movie was phenomenal. Can't wait for part two. Of course, I don't have as high as expectations of part two as part one. I'm hoping that works in its favor because I just don't think the part two is as good as part one in the stage show either. So I'm really interested. I think they're going to add a little more to it because if they added an hour to this one, they're going to add another hour, if not longer, 2 hours. Like, what are we getting that much more of in the part two? And so I'm really excited to see because that's where the creativity is going to come, where it feels like a different movie version. I think they're going to add a lot more, and I think they're adding songs. So something to be skeptical about, but also excited for. And I don't even mind them adding songs in the part two because I don't think part two is as good as part one. I know For Good is like a great song and everybody loves it. So much so that they named part two Wicked For Good, which I thought was kind of lame. Like, you're branding part one, now you name it For Good. That felt a little cheap to me. Like, hey, just remember. Unless, of course, they add so much into it that it does feel like a new movie that's not really part two from the stage show. And if that's the case, it makes more sense. So I'm excited about it, but Wicked blew me away, part one. And, I know I'm talking a lot about this, but it is my number one. So that's why it's getting the time here. The practical effects, the costumes, the way they mix like the in-room singing with like the studio singing. There was a couple of spots that were not great. A couple where I was like, that is really tuned or that is really processed. Take it or leave it on that. But overall, loved it. Overall, just loved the whole movie. When this director did Into the Heights, and I liked Into the Heights a lot, the movie. I love like the way they staged all the choreography and stuff. So I was really excited for that. And when we saw it in this film with Wicked, it is so awesome. Like the way they make it Aussian and they built this out. Like, I went and saw it with my mom over Christmas. I brought my family to go see it. 10 minutes into the movie, I feel like, maybe 15 minutes. I don't even know. The first thing she says, she turns to me in the theater and goes, "This is an expensive movie." And I was like, yeah, it's just, she saw it right away. Like, and in a world where there's so much CGI, and I'm not saying there's not CGI in this, obviously, like you're flying on brooms. There is so much bad CGI right now, or overuse of CGI in these movies, that like, that is what I thought we were getting from the trailers. It felt like, oh no, this is going to be a giant green screen mess. And it doesn't feel that way at all. Every scene feels so lived in for a place that is so fantastical that I just think they nailed it. And so I'm very excited to watch this again and again. And I'm very excited for part two, although I'm not sure that will be on my top anticipation list. That list will be coming out hopefully soon. So go check that out if you haven't. Maybe I'll link it below. What do you guys think? That is it. That's my top 5 with the 5 honorable mentions. I'm going to get to those ones I mentioned that I couldn't watch yet or didn't watch yet. What are y'all's? I know I missed some big ones on here. We're in that award season, so I'm starting to become more aware of movies that happen in 2024, but I just didn't have the time. There's just a lot going on in my life. So tell me what I missed. What are the big things that you guys love that I should definitely check out? And what do you disagree with? What's something on my list that you're like, that is crazy? Appreciate it. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Join me on this journey. Let's keep going into the geekdom, dabble in all the different geek universes. Catch you later.